The following is my conversation at Cycling World 2025 with Graeme Raeburn. Graeme is the lead designer at Albion Cycling and a respected cycling industry veteran who was instrumental in Rapha's early growth from 2008 to 2018. Graeme brings a unique perspective as a fashion-trained designer who approaches cycling apparel more like industrial product design than traditional fashion. Since joining Albion in 2019, he's been applying lessons learned from Rapha's rapid scaling to help build this British brand known for sustainable, high-performance cycling clothing. Our conversation explores the fascinating intersection of design and business, how commercial realities shape product decisions, the importance of feedback loops from power users, and the delicate balance between innovation and market viability in cycling's demanding technical apparel segment. This is the Business of Cycling podcast. Now, a respected cycling industry veteran who previously served as the lead designer for Rapha from 2008 to 2018. I was really there for the genesis of Rapha, which is cool. We'll get to talk about that today. So since 2018, Graeme has been the lead designer at Albion. Albion is a British cycling apparel brand founded in 2016. Focus on creating functional, durable, and sustainable cycling clothing designed specifically for challenging weather conditions. The brand is known for high-quality technical garments, blending performance with environmental responsibility. So, yeah, I guess to get started, Graeme, thanks first of all for coming out today.
Thanks for inviting me, Wyatt.
Yeah, I'm excited to. So we typically speak with managers, we typically speak with people more in the commercial side of things, but I'm excited to talk to you from more of the design standpoint to kind of hear how you approach design with the influence, obviously, of the business, because when you design things, they have to sell. I mean, ideally they should sell, and if they don't sell, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. So I'm excited to kind of look at how design in particular is influenced by in the commercial aspects. But to get started, maybe can you just tell us a little bit about, your background and where you grew up, where you're from, kind of your early...
Yes, certainly. So I'm from the UK. I grew up in the countryside, relatively isolated, about 30 miles south of London. The bike was like a tool to freedom for me. So if I wanted a job, if I wanted to see friends, if I wanted to go and buy a record or a CD, I needed to get on my bike. So from a really early age, the bike was like really core and central to my life. I went to art college, ended up studying fashion, clothing design, where I did a degree and a 2-year master's at the Royal College of Art in clothing design.
Where did you study?
I was at Middlesex University for a BA in fashion and then a MA at the Royal College of Art for 2 years for a master's in fashion women's wear.
So have you always wanted to be in clothing or in fashion or in design? Like when did you first...
That's something I've always tried to work through in my head, how have I ended up here? The truth is I'm more of a product designer, like an industrial designer working in textiles. So that's where the application to performance design, like outdoor gear, really that's where I'm way more at home. When it comes to fashion, you like red jackets, I like blue jackets. I don't really care about that side of the fashion thing.
But why art? What was it like when you were young? Why did you want to go into art?
So I first of all, before I actually did my degree in fashion, I did an art foundation year where the first term you spend a week doing every different type of art form. So photography, sculpture, architecture. On this amazing course, the fashion tutor, Jane Howarth, was this incredible ball of energy, inspiration. Just do it. Just if you've got an idea, you can get on a sewing machine and make it happen. And this inspiring tutor, leader, she was the person that got me into the idea of the concept of clothing design, fashion design. Prior to that, it hadn't really existed. So I suppose you could say there was a fork in the road there that maybe in another world I might have gone into industrial design or product design or something like that.
So you made a choice, it sounds like, that clothing was going to be your position, your direction.
Yeah, and as soon as I discovered that it's such an accessible art form. If you have an idea, you can get a pair of scissors, a sewing machine, and make it happen, and just be really hands-on. It's an art form that everybody has to engage in as well. I love that. You can have any art at home hanging on your wall. You could drive a particular type of car or ride a specific type of bike, but actually clothing you're engaged with like all the time, and it's essential. It communicates. It's a really intimate, personal thing that it's so individual.
And so, can you tell me what you went to art school? You studied fashion at a master's, and then your early professional career. What were some of your early steps into your professional career?
Yeah, so here I did deviate a bit more into fashion in the true sense. I was collaborating with my younger brother, who also studied fashion and runs a successful sustainable fashion label in London. So we were sharing studio spaces, doing projects, creating garments, but at the same time, I needed some more stable income, let's say. I took a step back and thought, what do I enjoy? What do I love? What am I good at? What do I find easy to do so I can just get some income? Bikes. I knew how to build bikes. I knew how to do bike mechanics. So I became a bike mechanic, a big UK chain called Evans Cycles. And I was their roaming mechanic. So wherever they needed a cover for mechanics, I could go to a store and work a week, do a load of overtime or whatever, and get money in the bank, and then kind of focus if there was a fashion project came in. So it really suited my lifestyle there to actually have this relatively stress-free kind of way of working.
So you were sort of a freelance mechanic, and then you had you had sort of focused on working in product design, clothing design, and so you were beginning to kind of feel out where you could find work in that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it sounds like you were really focused from the beginning.
Yes and no. I knew what I liked and I knew what I was good at. So I did concentrate on those things. However, I just had no idea how the clothing industry worked, the variety of like different roles and jobs out there. That there were people with jobs doing color forecasting or just designing labels and trim, or all of these like highly technical, specialized jobs. So I kind of went in very, very naive and green, I think.
I think that's how anybody does it. I don't think you can, So you're working on these various projects, and you're doing freelance bike mechanic work. What was kind of the next big step in your path?
So yeah, but with my brother, we were taking on like different projects. Like sometimes it might be production work where we end up making a couple of hundred kind of toy Scotty dogs for like, I think it was like Selfridge's Christmas window display or something, but we had the facilities that we could turn this stuff around. We were doing consultancy work, so coming up with design projects, and we were also producing our own range of garments, sustainable, kind of sourced, kind of ex-military surplus fabrics generated into new garments. So there were these three different strands. Completely by chance, a friend of a friend needed somewhere to live in London and moved into my brother's house share. That person was Joe Hall. Joe was the cousin of the creative director at Rapha. This was around 2007, I think. Luke, he was a cousin of Luke Scheibler. And this guy Joe kept saying to me and my brother Chris, you guys he was working in the Rapha warehouse at the time, which I say warehouse, that was a room in the one room kind of studio warehouse space. He was a very early employee at Rapha, and he kept saying to us, so you should come in and meet the Rapha guys. So I think sometime early 2007, my brother and I went in for a meeting with Simon Mottram and Luke Scheibler. My brother and I were probably more mountain bike focused and road focused. I'd recently got into road riding since being in London. It's quite hard to have a mountain bike, unless you've got a big vehicle to get it out and somewhere to wash it and stuff. So I'd recently got a road bike. It was a super exciting time as well in London. We'd secured the Olympics for 2012. I think the Tour de France the prologue stage was starting in, I think that was 2007 as well. So it was a really exciting time for cycling in London. There was a lot of investment being made in infrastructure. It was really kind of taking off. So we went in for this meeting because we had this studio space, my brother and I. We were actually able to turn around an idea, a concept for a sample relatively quickly in a week. We could go back in with a mock-up. So we started having these meetings, and products kind of started to come to life relatively quickly outside of the more regular linear production process where you would send a design to a factory, a technical drawing spec, and then maybe 3 months later you'd get your sample back. But here it was much more dynamic, much more live input from Simon and Luke as to what they were thinking. How about this? What if we change this? So we were able to turn stuff around relatively quickly, a space of a week or something, and accelerate these products.
And so it sounds like there was a lot of synergy there. It seems like the collaboration began pretty quickly, and you were able to really kind of begin contributing to the Rapha project.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a really good word there, the collaboration, where it was very much like a round table experience of everyone inputting, their areas of expertise, their thoughts on why a product might work, how it needed to work, the environment it needed to go into, and also aligned with a kind of a really strong business case as well, like where it fits into the range, how much it's going to cost, like why does this product exist, what's it for?
But I have to ask you, like, did it feel like it was going to be as big as it became?
Absolutely not. I became very aware of how quickly things were accelerating and growing, though. I think when you're in the moment, maybe things are explained, projected, but absolutely, if you kind of told me then that in 15 years' time it was going to be, as big as it was, I'd have struggled to get my head around it. It was probably the original studio space was maybe half the size of the room that we're in now. Everything was in those four walls. As I say, the warehouse, marketing, web, everything, in a relatively small space. But we grew very, very quickly, and the space would kind of double effectively. Maybe once a year, we would take on twice as much space or something like that. It moved very rapidly.
And so it was you, and did your brother continue to collaborate with the team as well?
Yes, I became officially involved in 2008 and went full time, and Chris carried on again with different projects. He was more studio based, so was able to again accelerate sampling, prototyping. He was also running the repairs program, and then eventually we ended up collaborating officially with a Rapha and Raeburn capsule collection for over 2 seasons. That was really good fun. It was the first time I think Rapha had done something that was overtly, but where we were proactively making choices to have more sustainable fabrics. So recycled, it was made locally, everything was made in the UK. And again, it was very direct, hands-on, sampled, prototyped, all in-house at Chris's. So we were able to accelerate this and really refine the products very, very dynamically and nimbly.
And so you spent 10 years with Rapha?
Yes, yeah.
And in that time, I guess, kind of seeing in the arc of that collaboration, kind of how did that develop over the years? You were the lead designer for most of that time?
Yeah, for quite a few years I was the only designer. We were a very small, tight team of manager and product development. It was relatively small, and the range was relatively lean and compact. But as the company grew, team sponsorship became bigger and more specialized. Like we took on more colleagues, the product team grew. We got more accessories, things like footwear, luggage, eyewear was coming in. So yeah, I saw the team grow and the entire business just grow similarly.
And so in your role, I guess you can't obviously take care of all those, so you were just kind of probably focusing on certain areas of the collections?
Yeah, so I became specialized in product innovation side of things, which was in tandem with the pro team sponsorship. So at that time was Team Sky. So we were working very closely with the team, overlapping, in order that we could do these innovation projects that might be textile based, might be pattern cut, might be detail, and then also have a very clear link into the commercial offerings that consumers, that community could benefit from.
So you had to balance performance with what the market wants,
yeah,
and also what the writers want.
Precisely, yeah, which is good fun it can be very challenging because, in a way, the pro riders, effectively, it's workwear. Like, they need a tool for the job. A consumer buying the top-end stuff might want a kind of a slightly different experience in terms of, they're investing a lot in this piece. It needs to be durable and, last in a way that perhaps a rider, a team kit is, it's a Mayfly lifespan, 365 days. The sponsors change, and that kit is superseded by something that's going to be lighter, faster, better performing.
And so in 2018, you ended up leaving Rapha, correct?
Yes.
And
yeah.
what was the next kind of step that you took after your time at Rapha?
So I ended up working with my brother Chris actually for a couple of years, and went in with a focus on bringing more performance element into things. So where you've got a sustainable focus around environmental consideration, I believe that also a strand of that could be around a performance element. So how, for instance, how well a garment fits, how often you have to launder it or press it or something like that. I think we all want clothes that actually are easy to wear, that fit us well, that look good. So I was coming in with maybe some more of the sports aesthetic, thinking around that. What can we do to actually improve somebody's wardrobe and make them actually love their garments more and keep them going for much longer?
And then in around 2018, you started collaborating with Albion, correct?
Yeah, I think that was 2019. I met the founders on a performance fabric trade show on the way back from this trade show. We started chatting about, I was very interested in their brand, which was 2019 would be kind of three years old now. At Raeburn, Christopher Raeburn's studio space, we had a really nice big studio that also functioned as a open door store, shop front at weekends. The space was really, really big, and I started a program to begin doing rail takeovers, weekend kind of studio takeovers, to invite brands in, and they could curate a great experience for their customers around talks, film screenings, and have a rail to promote their garments on. And it just happened very fluently. I said, well, Albion, if you want to come and do a season launch or something, that'd be amazing to do a cycle-focused weekend and things. So, yeah, the guys came in. We had a really good fun session of, as I say, talks, a film launch night, and workshops around repair sessions. So we did a completely open door process policy where we were repairing any brand cycle wear that people could bring in, patch, stitch stuff up, keep gear going for a little bit longer, and try and get people to think about clothes in the way that they might do a bike. If something wears out on a bike, it's relatively straightforward to replace it, upgrade it. If you want to put more capacity onto on a bike, you can put bags on or whatever. So why not start thinking about garments in this way that we can repair, upgrade? If you want more storage, why not put a pocket on? Why not stitch an extra pocket on or something? So we're trying to get people to change the way they're thinking about garments.
And so you had this studio space. You and your brother were working on your project as well. And so you began kind of working with Albion at the time. And when did you effectively start doing some collaboration with them?
So I joined them in 2020 officially. Actually, 21 I think was actually when I kind of went onto payroll, and it just felt a very natural fit to join them. I was really impressed by what they were doing, the products they made, and the philosophy behind the brand as well. Very much focus on environmental consideration, but also sustainable growth as well. That I think sometimes, within the cycle industry, there can be a lot of enthusiasm behind growing a brand, but it seemed a very pragmatic, slow growth approach towards the brand.
And I think, there's a lot of pressure from investment, a lot of pressure from outside forces to produce. And so you were able to kind of also go back to I presume from hearing you talking, like you wanted to go back to that moment in time when you could be have a much bigger maybe contribution to the brand, like you did maybe at the beginning of Rapha. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think I'm extremely lucky to have experienced what I did in terms of the growth at Rapha and to be part of that ride, that journey that I went on. I learned an awful lot. I got to experience a lot. I'm really indebted to Simon Mottram and Rapha for being there along with it. So I was able to take this, a lot of this experience and learnings and start putting ideas and systems into place. This was also aligned at the time as well with post-COVID or actually kind of mid-pandemic process where a lot of these ideas I'd actually put into work by building a home studio. So this was really focusing on how to get the most out of what's available in the room because you weren't able to travel around, maybe mix with people in a way. So actually, how can we remotely prototype? How can we communicate with factories really effectively? So I was able to make this kind of micro production factory in a kind of spare room desktop sort of setup,
Which you had done.
Yeah, and was in process of doing this, of hacking machines, getting the most out of equipment in order to rapidly produce, accelerate prototypes. So hats off to Albion. They allowed me to indulge with these concepts in the studio to actually transplant what I'd learned, all this thinking on how we can actually build really high quality innovative prototypes and plug into a factory, plug into the experts who are producing the garments, and build relationships with them in order that we can get the best quality garments possible.
So yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense that an Albion that was growing would want to collaborate with someone like yourself with the experience that you had. So I think that makes a lot of sense, and it sounds like that collaboration is kind of at full speed right now.
Yes, certainly. It's a really exciting time at the moment. I'm really genuinely buzzing from what we're producing, what we're making, the way that we're making. It's an amazing team. The products launching, coming out now are really singing. They're quite unique, I'd say, in terms of what's available out on the market, and that is definitely a result of working on stuff hands-on, going out and trying stuff, getting feedback from athletes, and being able to do this accelerated prototyping.
So I guess I want to switch gears and talk about product, because cycling is so product driven. It's incredibly product driven as opposed to maybe fashion. Can you talk a little bit about, from your experience, how products, how are they influenced, and how you as a designer, what are the inputs that you are taking, and from what sources are you taking input that go into your products?
Goodness, I think this might need to be another podcast. So taking a step back, I think cycle apparel was relatively primitive, I think, in terms of specialized sports development. If you were to put it alongside, say, snow sports or wetsuits or something like that, where actually year on year there was big innovations were being made, materials were being innovated for specialist application. By and large, kind of 90s, 2000s, materials being used were, the market is still relatively small against other mass market sports, participation sports. They were utilizing materials from other industries, other sports, and actually around 2000s plus, you were actually starting to see way more specialized development around improvements, understanding of the complexities of the industry. I'm going to stick my neck out and say I don't think there's another sport, experiential participation that is as demanding on materials, fabrics, as cycling is. You've got to have a material that is comfortable next to the skin, lightweight, stretch, durable, resistant to UV, to sweat, sun cream, road spray, grit. It's got to be laundered multiple times, sometimes at industrial level. It's got to be printed to bright, high-vis colors and stay persistent.
It's got to breathe.
And it's got to be exactly comfortable, breathable. So I think if you look around, actually lots of other sports do not dial, they're not as demanding on materials. What I'm getting around to saying is actually we're seeing now a lot more very specialized, innovative materials that are so well suited, and understanding the complexity of even the movement and the shape of a cyclist. It's quite bizarre if you think about it. Most garments are fitted up when you're stood upright, and then all of a sudden you kind of swing your arms forward, get hunched down over a bike, and it's a very specialized area. So, and then also married to now more sustainable materials coming through, which are part of actually a bigger United Nations sustainable objective goals for 2030, where all industries have got to clean up and be more accountable. So we're seeing this convergence now of more sustainable, more durable and suited fabrics actually coming through. It's a super exciting time for that.
No, sure, but I guess my question is, though, where do the inputs come from for your designs?
So yes, and then you've also then got this whole range of different inputs. Empathizing with expert users, I think that's really important. Connecting with the communities that are using the sport.
Power users.
Yes, that's a great expression. Power users. You've got to consider the environment that you're going into as well. That as a designer, have you experienced those conditions yourselves? In some very special applications, we've been providing equipment for fat biking, snow biking, and there's an expedition to Iceland coming up in a few weeks' time that we've been actually customizing kit for. I can't ever understand what a minus 40 degrees centigrade wind chill factor is. So I'm reliant on the athletes telling me like what that needs to be, that specialist equipment. We've got then considerations over like market conditions as well, what's going on there. So again, the
price point.
Yes, exactly, where far smarter people in the room than me are able to demonstrate the mechanics around why this needs to be a certain thing and function this way.
So like a brief will come down typically.
Yep.
So, and you're working with the commercial team, you're working with the marketing team to kind of feel what's happening in the market.
Yep.
Before you start on a project, is there, it could start from an idea, it doesn't sound like it's very structured to me.
It's extremely structured actually, that we do have these different data points input into exactly a brief. But I'm going to flip things on its head though, because I'm an absolute nightmare for, if I have an idea, I will make it at the weekend and give it to someone, and all of a sudden they're really into it, and oh my God, we've got to, how do we fit this into the range or something? So I recently made beautiful fabric. I thought I'm going to make some insulated trousers with it. So like our Zoa mountain jacket, but a trouser version of that. And so all of a sudden they're really popular in the studio, and there's a bit of head scratching going on. That they're not on the range, but people love them. So I don't know. Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to take it back to what is the feedback loop and I know that there's probably initial layers of feedback loop, like internal feedback loops, and then obviously the market is going to vote with their wallets. But what are the feedback loops that you as a designer experience throughout the lifestyle of a product when it's developed?
We really focus on evolution of core key products that we build and we establish, or like good reputation around these products, and we will review them, improve them in a very methodical way through
core key products. So you're selecting almost like a positioning of, we're going to take this product and we are going to
hone it,
invest in that one,
exactly,
hone in, try and make it better, because we know that is where we want to be.
On roughly a 2-3 year cycle there, focus, and we'll review it looking at fabric fit, features and fabrication. Like, are they all dialed?
Where do new categories, I guess, then?
So that's actually where a lot of the discipline around the brief will come in, but also in terms of a sustainable slow growth, we will start very, very small. And an example of that might be that we will produce 5 prototypes out of the studio to get onto power users, expert users who will green light it. We might then do a micro production run for commercial applications. So
do those go into like key stores then?
These will be sold online, actually, just again because of that direct contact with users. They won't be commercially viable. There will be a loss leader probably, but if we can make 50 and test the market with them. So we've done this actually with a couple of products, and that gives us confidence to then go into a factory production. Another feedback, so we'll have this very slow, gradual scaling of products to get behind it and have confidence in it. Another feedback loop is design team is completely connected to our free repairs program. So all Albion garments come with free repairs for life of the garment. We're in there, we're doing the repairs. So actually, it is absolutely in our interest to make sure that those products do not come back through the door for us to repair. Sure, nicks and scrapes, people coming off, that's one thing. But if there is a point that is fatiguing, wearing out, we will be directly connected with that and put things into motion. And there have been a couple of examples early on where actually we've designed out problems of durability, let's say, around that was fabric stressing, over over hundreds of thousands of cycles, and we've now actually learned a technique to resolve that.
And so, as in terms of the feedback loop, you mentioned that there are core products that are almost like that's the assortment, right? That's the core assortment with, we'll say, Albion. I suppose that there's a risk of wanting to expand and wanting to go into other categories. In your experience, what are the risks and benefits of an expanding range?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is correct. That everyone always wants to do more and be more ambitious. Fortunately, we are really, really small, or relatively, small, and so actually we need the discipline to only focus on these key things at the moment, and that does mean that actually we can park ideas. We have a holding pattern as well. So the example that I just gave of the insulated trousers, they're kind of, they're in the holding pattern, waiting for air traffic control to call them in a few years' time, sort of thing. So.
And at Rapha, your experience around the assortment, it sounds like it was sort of by necessity was expanding. What were some of the positive and negative aspects of that?
That's a really good point. The range, not just the range, but the points of experience as well. When you've got at Rapha, a travel experience, you've got cycle clubs and things like that. It became huge. And the key thing there is ensuring that there is a common thread of experience of those touch points. I always give the example of, I think one of the exciting things for us in the early days was actually the website. The Rapha website kind of spawned, a million mimics and replicants of it. But I think that really was the classic jersey. That was the website, was the classic jersey, was the brand experience, was the packaging, that it was so consistent and clear. And I think that's the massive challenge that you have with an expanding brand.
With any brand, yeah. And it makes me think of like the Lacoste polo, right? Where you've got that pillar in the middle, and I mean, they can expand as much as they want, but I always think that Lacoste is it's the Lacoste polo, right?
Yeah. And it's to do with the proportion of color, the location of that, the symbol, the crocodile on there. But how do you do that when you are maybe producing like thousands of different SKUs and products?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. So you're currently at Albion. It sounds like you're having a really good time helping them to grow. So I guess kind of over the next couple of years, what are you looking forward to most with this collaboration?
Okay, personally, I'm really excited about actually learning more skills to do what I've just been talking about better and accelerate that. So digital prototyping, 3D, potentially 3D garment design on a software side, but also in terms of hardware, there's some really interesting research projects I'm involved with that actually we might be able to innovate some like mechanics, some actual automated machinery to improve our repair process and actually in-house sampling. That would be incredible to kind of, if I had a magic wand to be able to do this, but it's 5 years out, it's potentially 10 years. And within Albion, we've got some great products in the pipeline that we have a new product coming in autumn winter that's going to be it's a windproof jersey, thermal wind jersey that has windproof panels on the front of it, wind block in a beautiful Pertex. That product is absolutely singing. I've just done a fits on men's and women's this week, just gone, and it's so exciting to see that stuff come to life. And it's sort of a ship in a bottle moment where all this work in the background suddenly pops out and becomes very, very real.
That must be the kind of the moment when your product is out there. That's kind of the pinnacle of the process.
Yes, yeah. I think that when it's fitting, the features are working. Like that's what really makes I'm buzzing thinking about it. Yeah, my heart sings when this stuff happens.
Well, Graeme, I think it was really cool to have you on today. It was amazing to hear kind of about your journey. So I appreciate you coming out, and thank you again for taking the time and being with us today.
Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you, Cycling World, for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Cycling World.